Before Clean Decisions, I was on the streets. You know what I'm saying? I was a drug dealer.
People coming out of incarceration deserve a chance.
In a changing part of town, Barry Farm, once known for
corruption, violence, drugs, sex, money.
These men are cleaning up the streets, the rec center, and the perception about people who've been in prison.
Lost, confused, dehumanized. Like I wasn't part of a society, or I was feeling that I was going to end up back in jail.
Fueled by the sting of 22 job rejections, former gang member Will Avila started a company called Clean Decisions 4 years ago.
Right now we have 17 full-time employees. We're officially a $500,000 company. We created a family, a brotherhood for people coming out and looking for a second chance, third chance, fourth chance, fifth chance. We don't give up on you.
As a man, I feel like I need to be able to stand on my own 2 feet, and that's what this do for me.
Troy and Charles aren't just providing for their families. They're providing examples to the kids here coming up.
Maybe Clean Decisions would be the tipping point for Barry Farms.
Prisons and jails shouldn't be filled with people of color. Colleges should.
And we getting even better and better. Definitely.
Inspiring in Southeast, Debra Alfarone, WUSA 9.
It was a January night back in 2013. Ethan Saylor's 26 years old. He has Down syndrome. He goes to the movie theater with his aide to see the movie Zero Dark 30. When the movie ended, his aide went to get the car. Ethan turned around and went back in. He wanted to see the film a second time. 3 off-duty Frederick County Sheriff's deputies, moonlighting as movie theater security, asked him to leave. This is his aide.
All of a sudden I hear kicking and screaming and ouch, Mary, Mom, that hurts, don't touch me, get off. And so I run in, and then I'm crying hysterically. I did not really know what to do. I see him jumping up in the air and screaming, so I turn around because I was scared, and I turned back around, and then all of a sudden they're on the floor, and all the noise, it was just completely silent.
Ethan died hours later. An autopsy said he died from a fractured larynx. The ME ruled it a homicide, but a grand jury said deputies didn't do anything wrong.
They know what went down that night. I have a sense of what went down that night. Regardless of the details, Ethan died over the cost of a movie ticket.
That was Ethan's mom, Patty. She and her family never stopped fighting for justice. First, they collected more than 300,000 signatures to ask then-Governor Martin O'Malley to launch an independent investigation into Ethan's death. He didn't. But he did establish the first-ever Maryland Commission for the inclusion of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, headed by Tim Shriver.
The goal of this commission is to make Maryland the best state in the country, if not in the world.
As a result, all police officers in Maryland are trained differently now. Patty filed a civil suit. She testified before the U.S. Senate. She also pushed for the Ethan Saylor Alliance for Self-Advocates. It's the only center like it in the country where people with disabilities advocate for themselves. All the while, anniversaries passed.
And justice is remembering, this is when I'll cry. Justice is remembering a life that mattered. He mattered for 26 years, and he still matters.
Our reporting back then touched people. The hashtag Justice for Ethan was trending. Patty kept fighting. She won the Advocate of the Year award from the National Down Syndrome Society. I was honored to present it to her. And throughout the years, lawyers battled it out over that civil suit. It's now been settled. The 3 deputies, the state and the property management company, Hill Management Services, will pay the Saylors $1.9 million.
There's no relief, there's no joy, because he's still gone. I wish I could say it gets easier. It really doesn't get easier to live without him.
It has been 5 years full of grief and grit. Because of Ethan's death and Patty's fight, more officers now know how to work with people with intellectual disabilities, and more people with intellectual disabilities have a voice. You could say that Ethan is an angel for others.
Ethan was a young man that was born with an extra chromosome, which we call Down syndrome, which does not define a human being, but it certainly presented some challenges for him. He was loving and funny and loyal. A person with a disability is simply a person with all the same hopes, dreams that we have, perhaps a bit less skill in communicating. Let go of some of those myths and stereotypes, or question them.
How were these children sold repeatedly on a website 24/7, on the hour, by the hour? How is this happening in the United States of America?
It doesn't just damage the victim, it damages everything and everybody around it.
This is not hidden in the deep, dark web. Click, and within 15 minutes, you can have a child delivered to your home as easy as ordering a pizza.
That man who purchased her from Backpage beat her, strangled her, raped her, and then cut her throat. If I would have known what was really going on the internet, maybe I could have educated her differently. But unfortunately, she didn't make it.
Yvonne Ambrose's 16-year-old daughter, Desiree, was the light of her life. Ambrose says she was smart, made good grades, wanted to be a physician in the Air Force. One day in November 2016, Desiree disappeared. 4 excruciatingly long weeks later, Yvonne's phone rings.
To have someone call you and say that they found your daughter is a parent's worst nightmare. You pray that they don't get caught up with the wrong people. You keep them in every single activity, after school activity. She was involved in every sport. She was a great student. And they found her.
Changing the law can change the world.
Today, Yvonne and hundreds of moms, survivors, filmmakers, and advocates are going to fight to try and hold Backpage accountable. But first, let's take a quick look at the size of the problem. Every year, 300,000 children are lured into being sold for sex in this country.
This is not a child here or there. This is an epidemic.
The average age, 15. It happens everywhere. More than 70% are sold on Backpage. And a U.S. Senate subcommittee report projects Backpage will make as much as $250 million next year. But how is this legal? It's legal because Backpage is protected by a 20-year-old law called the Communications Decency Act. All websites are, even ours. It means that Backpage can't be held liable, nor can we for anything that other people post on it, like, let's say, a comment, a picture, or even an ad to sell children for sex. In this example, Backpage isn't liable for the ads on their site that sell children for sex because they didn't place the ads, a third-party pimp did. They just gave that person a platform and they make millions off of it. So, lawsuits trying to make Backpage pay get dismissed. That's why these women and men, including Yvonne Ambrose, are on Capitol Hill to try and push a bill to change that. If it passes, it would make Backpage liable for knowingly, and that's the key word there, knowingly help to sell children online for sex. And then people like Yvonne Ambrose could possibly sue them for restitution and win. Free speech advocates say that could open the door a crack for people to sue all sorts of websites for things other people post.
I, for one, as an advocate for free speech issues and for small startups, I get it.
Sasha Moss is a lawyer with R Street Institute, a think tank that believes in limited government.
Creating new laws with stronger burdens isn't necessarily the way to do it when we already have a toolbox full of ways prosecutors can get at the bad guy.
This crowd will soon mobilize and hit the offices of senators and congressmen and women one by one.
They're being sold, much like property might be sold.
This is Senator Rob Portman, a Republican from Ohio. He says Backpage is more devious than you might think. He says they don't just sit by and collect money. He says they work with pimps to create ads that won't tip off the cops that the girl or boy is underage.
When someone would send an ad in saying, you know, cheerleader or schoolgirl, you know, they would go to the person purchasing the ad and said, you need to take that word out, but still place your ad with us.
Because they make money off of it.
Because they make money off of it.
We reached out to Backpage to check on all of this. We emailed, we called, and we didn't hear back. A quick note, fighting Backpage, it's nothing new. Founders Michael Lacey and Jim Larkin, along with Backpage CEO Carl Ferrer, were arrested in California in 2016 for conspiracy to commit pimping and other charges. The case was dismissed 2 months later. Lacey and Larkin issued a statement that said, in part, as the federal courts have said time and again, there would be no internet if websites were liable for user content they neither created nor posted. Back to this fight.
Yvonne didn't have that opportunity.
In the front row, Kubiki pride, her emotions so raw it might overflow any second. Unlike Yvonne Ambrose, Kubiki still has her daughter, but just barely. Her daughter, who wants us to call her M.A., was sold on Backpage in 2009, and Kubiki bought her back. Ever since, it's been a struggle to keep her home and keep her safe.
I wouldn't care what she ever did or what was ever done to her. There is nothing that she could ever do that would make me feel any less love for her. I love her unconditionally, and I will fight to the end of the earth for my kids.
Go in, introduce yourself, explain that we're anti-trafficking advocates from organizations from across the nation.
I don't know.
Fighting this for a long time.
8 years.
8 years.
8 years.
You're never going to give up.
No, I'm not going to give up. Like, I made a promise to my daughter that, I was going to keep fighting until the laws in the United States were changed, because there's no reason kids should be sold for sex here.
Kubiki has a meeting scheduled with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. When we get there, he's not there. She leaves a packet.
And I thank you so much for listening to me today. You have to understand, at 13 years old, my kid was taken and tied down and given drugs. Given a lot of drugs, like interventions. She's been beaten, and she's had so much done to her. I don't know how she will ever recover. The trail of damage and tears, heartbreak, and lives is what says that this is wrong. And America, our Senate, our House, they have to see things our way so that we can get this law changed, so that they deserve a chance.
As the minutes tick past, this scene plays out at different offices with different faces throughout the House and Senate. Yvonne Ambrose says 24 hours in Washington can effect change.
That's why I came to D.C. I came because they probably look at the news the same way I used to, as, oh, it just happens in other countries. But no, this wasn't just like in my backyard. It came to my home. This ruined me.
Yvonne says there's no other way she would have wanted to spend this day fighting for Desiree.
Hour by hour, not even day by day. We're still hour by hour. What's next? I'm gonna continue to fight. She's gone now. She doesn't have a voice. She can't fight anymore. As a mother, I'm gonna fight for her. I'm gonna fight every day until I take my last breath.
Me too.
Me too.
Me too.
Hashtag me too.
When I was 25 years old, I went to a concert with some friends and ended up accepting a drink from one of the guys that was part of the group. After that, my memory goes black, and I would just remember waking up the following morning with my skirt having blood on it. I realized I had been sexually assaulted.
I met this guy. I was excited. It was supposed to be a night of a fun date, dancing in the city. He turned violent, and something in me gave me strength to run. I ran as fast as I could. I had to fight him off. And to this day, I wonder what would have happened if maybe he'd put something in my drink, or maybe I hadn't had the courage to fight him off.
I was harassed by my male supervisor. I did report him to the corporate compliance officer, who was very supportive, and she asked me to report it to the executive director, and sadly, she was not. Left me feeling demoralized. She made excuses for him and told me that I just didn't understand his sense of humor.
When I was about 10 years old, a man in his 40s told me how attractive I looked in my swimsuit. Nearly 2 decades later, while walking down the street and carrying laundry detergent, a man just reached out and grabbed one of my breasts.
I was a senior in college, just starting to date. Had not even come out of the closet yet. I met a guy, we went home and started to have sex. I said no, and he said scream for me.
tough to listen to. It's tough to say. We see you, we hear you, and we have a resource that can help you and the women and men who didn't post their story.